Good evening, everybody. This is the second episode of Paravine Show Into the Rift. My name is Thomas Watts, and I'm joined by three Paravine writers, Stephen Nguyen, Kamil Mai, and Chase Wassenaar. We've got a great show planned for you, and I do want to say before I give you the topics, this show is for fans. So if you're in chat with us, feel free to ask questions. I believe one of the guys that's on the show, in many cases, Dave Troop, will be moderating chat, passing questions to me, and we'll be talking about whatever hot button issue you want to hear about. But in between then, we do have some topics we're going to talk about, and the first one is probably the most important one on every fan's mind. That's the World Group Draw. That happened today. We'll be getting the panelists, and my own to a certain extent, impressions of the draw, as well as everyone's picks. We are going to talk a little bit more about the promotion tournaments, which both go on this week, and there are the new rules that were released by LOL Esports pertaining to region locking. I'll call it region locking, even though it's not really fair. It's the 3/5 rule. But before we get there, let's go ahead and jump straight into the World's Group Draw. We had the group draw happen today, courtesy of LOL Esports, and we have some pretty interesting groups to talk about. I'm going to kind of launch a softball here because this is probably the easiest group to talk about, and just talk about Group A. If fans have not seen that group, it consists of China's Edward Gaming, Korea's Samsung Galaxy White, the GPL's AHQ Esports Club, and Turkey's Dark Passage. So I'm going to give this one to Steven. Steven, what were your first impressions when you saw this group?
Well, they revealed, Dark Passage and AHQ first? And after that,
Yes.
I just had to think, who are the next two people that are going to dumpster these guys? And then I saw, EDG, and then Samsung White, We think we know who's going to get out of out of the groups this time, but I do want to see Westor play. Even if HQ loses every single game in groups, I do want to see just Westor going nuts on people.
Well, I think that is the most top-heavy group, but Kamil, who I pronounced your name right, so you can't make fun of me in post-production, what do you think about this group?
It kind of is pretty sad for me because I'm a huge fan of HQ Esports Club myself for quite some time already, so I'd say it wouldn't be my pick to have this set up, and I'm happy to see not only Westor but also Garnet Devil and Green Tea, who are really cool, and both with their picks and with their play. But I just can't see them overtaking Edward Gaming or Samsung White. It's just they are good. If they were switched with Taipei Assassins, maybe there would be some upset. But this group is constructed in a way where I don't think there is even a chance, even a slight chance for an upset. Just not gonna happen.
It's the worst case scenario for AHQ. I mean, this is a team I've really enjoyed watching just because I'm a personal fan of Westor's. I think that he's just one of those fun mid laners to see what he can do. You never know if he's just going to go crazy for a game and really take one for himself. And honestly, I could see AHQ surprising and getting maybe one game from either White or from EDG. But that's about all they're going to get from this. Those are just two powerhouse teams that are at the top of their game right now. And honestly, I think the most exciting part of this group is that we get to see them pitted against each other to see who's going to get that top spot. Honestly, it's the perfect combination to see whether the top teams in Korea and the top teams in China are really that close, or if the gap's maybe a little bit more in that Korean direction.
Well, absolutely, and at the risk of ticking off my LOL Esports colleague, Kelsey Moser, I have Samsung White over EDG personally, but that's what the games are for. So I think I'm pretty confident in saying we all have EDG and Samsung White moving on, and probably, correct me if I'm wrong, AHQ third, Dark Passage fourth in this group.
Yeah, I'd put AHQ third.
Okay.
If either wildcard teams take a game from this whole World Finals, I am going to have my mind blown. They've been put in the worst possible situation. They'll be happy to be there. But no, I don't think Dark Passage is getting a game.
Well, come on. You know Kaboom's going to upset Najin Whiteshield in Group D. And Ann Pragg's head is going to explode all over Twitter. But, you know,
but
that's...
Brazil is number one, man.
Yeah. Total. No. Stop that. Anyway, guys, let's move on to Group B. I think this group is probably the most interesting. It's, for fans, again, that haven't seen group draws, I'll spoil it, so spoiler alert. It's Team Solo Mid from North America, the Taipei Assassins from the GPL, Starhorn Royal Club from China, and Europe's SK Gaming. Again, I think this is wide open, but Camille, what do you have in here coming from this group? What do you think?
It's probably the only group where, Klaus is going to kill me for that, but I actually don't know if the Chinese team can get out of the group as easily as in any other group. I see all scenarios quite possible. I even see maybe even Taipei Assassins and SK, which probably would be the two, I wouldn't say underdogs, but the less favorite ones for the fans. But personally, I think that TSM, also there will be this huge discussion if it's a rigged stuff for TSM to get out of the group, but that's definitely a separate discussion.
I don't understand that discussion, though. I've seen this come up on Twitter, and honestly, if Riot wanted to rig it, you could just put TSM in Group A. That's an easier way to rig it. They could have done that in a heartbeat. They didn't do it. And if you are going to rig Group B, then you could put AHQ instead of TPA, which is an easier draw. You could put a wildcard team instead of SK Gaming. That would have been an easier draw. And you could put OMG, which has had organizational issues, a whole bunch of behind-the-scenes question marks, put them instead of Royal Club. All of that would have been easily done within the format, would have looked mostly like what we've got here, but actually be a lot easier for TSM. They didn't do it. I don't know. I don't believe
by all means, I'm not saying they rigged it, and I wouldn't personally even care if they did, because in the end, two teams go out of the group, and they will fight two best teams from different groups. So if you put TSM and three really bad teams, so what if TSM goes first from the group? The second spots from the other groups will be insanely strong, and they will probably sweep TSM anyway. So it doesn't really matter for me personally. But
Shots
back
fired.
to back to the group. I think that Royal Club played really well at the regionals. And at the playoffs as well, although less than the regionals. And I would go for TPA over TSM, because I've rewatched the whole playoff games for the regionals or packs for the TSM team, and there are some really worrying tendencies that TSM shows, and I think TPA can take at least 2, maybe 3 out of 4. And I think TPA can go higher than TSM this time.
Well, to your point, I'll kick it to another panelist shortly. TPA's jungler Wins has been on fire in the past couple of months. But Steven, what do you think? Do you think Camille's crazy, or are you on the same page?
Well, I have to admit that I don't watch the GPL, but I do have a question to maybe frame my perspectives. How good is TPA in relative to the rest of the GPL? And do you I know they're crushing over there, but do they just look good because they're playing bad players, or do you think they're legitimately good? Like, what about TPA is really good? Because I think TPA has a pretty good upset chance in terms of who's going to get out of groups. I'll give them that benefit of the doubt because I think they're clearly good. I mean, they're way better than the rest of the GPL. But how good is TPA?
Chase, do you want to take this? I know you've got a little more familiarity with the GPL, and then Camille, if you disagree with Chase, or if you agree, just jump in right after.
Yeah, I have to say, one of the things I really love about TPA, this split versus where they were when they were in All-Stars, I really feel like their communications improved significantly. I think Wins has added a little bit more direction to that team, and he's gotten them to a point where their team fights are just a lot more smooth. Now, are they so smooth that you can compare them to teams like Korea or even a Chinese team fight? I don't think so. I don't think they're quite at that level, but I think they've definitely bridged that gap. and I think that they're a team that can play. They could go into any Western League and hold their own, if not make a serious run for the top spot. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of TSM either. I feel like they had this amazing run towards the end of that playoffs where Dyrus was playing out of his mind, that full Dyrone mode that we've seen time and time again. And Bjergsen played the best series that I think he's ever played at a best of 5. And Lustboy played out of his head. And I don't know if you get those three things happening on a consistent basis again. I think that's asking a lot for that team. Whereas I think with Royal Club, you know the team fights are going to be there. And I feel like you can say the same thing about a team like TPA. So when TSM relies so much on their strong laners and they needed to play out of their heads, I don't know. I don't have the confidence in them. I have Royal Club 1 and TPA 2 for me.
Okay.
To a certain degree, I agree with your assessment of TSM. What I really hate about TSM is they can't close games, they can't siege properly yet. Maybe it will change. Probably not, because the time... but they don't have too much time to change much. They can't siege properly, and most of the games so far resulted in wins because of some random fights around dragons or just random picks or random mispositions from the enemies. And TPA is really great at just staying cool, playing slowly, and just taking their time, and then at a certain point just winning one team fight and a certain objective, then just moving around a bit. And they're slowly winning the game against teams who can't decisively compete against Barons or compete for Barons or Dragons. So that's how they beat AHQ, for example. AHQ played really well the early game, but they didn't do anything after the early game and slowly just lost. There's no way around it. So TSM is in the same category as AHQ was, and I think TPA is a perfect team who can use that advantage and actually take TSM, well, yeah, as I said, 3 or 4 games. I don't know, probably something around that.
I do want to remind fans, Stephen, before you jump into the conversation, if you have a question for us or if you have a dissenting point of view, feel free to mention it in chat. Or I'm not monitoring Twitter, so let's not go there this week. But mention it in chat, and it'll get passed to me, and we can discuss it. If you have a question of what we said, you can do that too. We do appreciate your feedback. But anyway, Stephen, what do you think about this group now that you've heard a little more about TPA and the GPL?
Okay, so if I take that into perspective, I think it'll play out in one of 2 ways. I think Starhorn will definitely get out. I'd put them as 1 for me. 2, I'll put up between TSM or TPA, because, I mean, obviously I haven't seen TPA play. I haven't seen TPA play against better teams in the world. Sure, TSM did look shaky here and there, but they are playing against... I mean, I'm not saying NA is a really good region, but they were playing against C9, who is a strong team. So notice I'm not surprised they were shaky from time to again. But I'll say this in a few ways. Either one, TSM will roll them in lanes, or they'll get chipped away through strategy and decisiveness if TPA can do so. So I'll leave it up to that, whether or not... It's hard, because they've never played each other, so I can't accurately say whether or not TSM can roll them hard enough in lane to end the game or not. So yeah, number 2 for me is TSM or TPA.
Chase, what you got?
Oh, I was just going to say, if you're a TSM fan and you want to bank on TPA not performing quite to the level that Camille and I just talked about, you got to think about the fact that the GPL ended their professional play about a month ago. TPA has not had to play a real opponent in a long time. Now, maybe they've been putting that time towards scrims, but when we saw the same amount of time, that and their All-Stars appearance, we saw a huge drop in quality. So that's the kind of thing that they're worried about. Personally, I think they're going to learn from that lesson and show up for this event, but that's the one thing that if you're a TPA fan, that's got to be running through your head right now.
Well, okay. One last thing. No one mentioned SK Gaming. Quite frank question to the panel. Do these guys have a shot, or is it like the three big guys beating up on the little guy on the playground, or is it going to be kind of a 4-way fight? What do you see there? Or are they just a step behind and they're just hosed? Stephen, you laughed the hardest, so what do you think?
Well, I laughed not because I think SK is a bad team. I can't believe everyone forgot about SK. But I would
That's why you pay me the big bucks to host the show to bring up the topics.
really we
Go
pay
ahead.
you? We pay you for this?
In
Uh,
hugs.
Okay. But I would say B is probably one of the closest groups in the of the four. So I would definitely say that SK has a chance to take it over TSM. But okay. See, for me, when I went into this, I thought, okay, Starhorn number 1, TSM number 2, and then TPA and SK can both overtake TSM. I don't think that's a unlikely possibility. But I give the upset potential more to TPA than I do to SK.
Chase, do you disagree with that? You look like you're itching to.
Yeah, I like SK, and I have some friends at that organization who I'm sure are furious at me for not mentioning them up until this point. But it's one of those teams that I've always felt had this great strategic understanding of the game, but didn't always necessarily have the pure mechanics to follow through in all of those things. You'll see that in some of their early games and whatever else. I think that they're a good team. I think this is a team that could easily get third in this group. I don't think they're an afterthought. I just think that when you're looking at whoever's going to make it out of this group is going to be playing at their best possible game. And I don't think SK's best game can beat a Royal Club or a TPA or a TSM that's at their best possible game. Any of those guys on an off day, SK Gaming can take them out. I totally believe in that. I just don't think they have the overwhelming power to power through that region if everyone's playing at their best.
I think that's fair. So if I'm reading the conversation correctly, Chase, you and Camille both have Starhorn and TPA making it through, while Steven, you've got Starhorn and TSM making it, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that'll be interesting. I think your point, Steven, just to reiterate and then move on, I think you've made a very interesting point with, while TSM might be the favorite in that group, it's so wide open past Starhorn that I agree with you. I wouldn't be surprised if the second team that makes it at Group B is a surprise based on a couple of upsets. But let's move on to Group C. Group C, again, for fans that missed the group draw. You have Korea's Samsung Galaxy Blue, probably the most consistently powerful team over the past 6 months. Europe's Fnatic, China's OMG, and China/North America's LMQ. Chase, before we move on, you're having a little trouble with your webcam, but we probably can still hear you, so you'll just probably be a face in the void, and that happens. Camille, what do you think about Group C? Who do you have, what were your initial impressions, and who do you have coming out of the group?
First of all, I've seen a couple people saying that Xpeke will be doing pretty well against both Dade and Cool, and I just find it a bit funny. I mean, Xpeke is... I'm not saying he's a bad player, but it's Dade and Cool, so I don't think that's gonna work too well for Fnatic. Probably it's a pretty easy to predict group because obviously you have Blue, which one of the favorites for the whole thing, and then you have OMG. And OMG, it's a bit tough to talk about OMG because they have really awesome games, but they have also games where they throw really hard. They don't make the best decisions, and that really costs them a lot. So I would say that Samsung Blue will be a definite first, then probably OMG. I don't know, Fnatic always plays well on those high-pressure tournaments, so there is a slight chance for the upset, but it's just a slight chance, so probably OMG second. And I'm not saying LMQ is bad by any chance before you tell that I'm doing that.
Before Kelsey jumps through your webcam and shoots you.
That's good, pretty possible actually. But yeah,
I'm trying to
not a
fix
bad
the
team.
layout while we get Chase back in here, so sorry to interrupt.
LMQ is not a bad team by any chance, but I think Fnatic is too smart to go into the random skirmishes type of a game. They prefer, and they pretty much win always, or most of the time at least. And yeah, I'm pretty sure Blue will be first, and I don't see them losing a single game to anyone. Maybe to a random snowball from either Fnatic or OMG, but that's just a random snowball. You can't really do much about it. And then OMG will be second, pretty close to Fnatic, but still a bit ahead.
Well, that's fair. Steven, I'm going to be working trying to get Chase back. Why don't you give us your breakdown of Group C? And apologies to folks looking at it live. We have had a slight technical difficulty, but we're working to fix it. Thank you very much for hanging with us. But Steven, what you got for Group C?
Give me a second while I move this overlay so that Camille's face doesn't split in half and he's the Two-Face from Batman.
Well, there's that. Well, I'll break down what I see for Group C then, because I haven't had a chance to jump into the conversation very much. I honestly think that OMG is in some not dire straits. They have a ton of individual mechanical skill, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes there. I guess the question in my mind is not who's coming out first, because Samsung Blue is going to romp. I mean, just romp. If they don't, I would be shocked if in some cases they don't actually style and just kind of screw around. I think they're that far ahead than everyone else in their group. But Fnatic OMG is going to be close. The question is, does Fnatic's, let's call it overall team togetherness and their tendency to show up big in key moments, does that outweigh what is OMG's extreme individual mechanical skill? Gogoing is unbelievable, and he's going to be a problem for SOAS. He is. So what comes through there? I have to give the advantage to OMG because I think they'll be able to call Fnatic to heal, like engage on them, and cause a lot of problems for Fnatic. But I would not be shocked at all if Fnatic comes out of this group at number 2. LMQ and OMG are kind of oddly the same, not in how they play the game, but in that I think they're very good, but there's so much bad going on around them in the organization, a lot of uncertainty, that it's tough to really jump in and think that they're going to be able to maintain the consistent level of preparation and play that it takes to get out of the group. But again, that number 2 spot there is really, really interesting. Let me see if I can get Chase back. And we are actually trying to get Chase back, but we might have someone else hop in. Again, thank you very much for staying with us. We are going to kind of have to tap dance, but as someone who has done live radio for years, this is kind of part of it. Steven, if you had a chance to fix the overlay, can I get your group, or is it Camille and I need to riff a little bit more? We can come back to Group C if you need to keep working.
I can talk now.
All right, give us your breakdown of Group C.
Let's see. It's a bloody group, I'll say that. All the teams are really aggressive. So
This is true.
my first impression was this is just gonna be the more exciting group, and not in the sense that it has the most interesting story, but I think the games will not be disappointing. I definitely have Blue as number 1 for me. I don't think LMQ is gonna get on. I don't think they have the experience just yet. And if we're getting Chase back in, I'll also have to fix the overlay.
Yeah, well, go ahead and give us your breakdown.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're back. It's good. Steven, go ahead and finish your breakdown quickly, and then I'll kick it to Chase, and that'll be fine.
I didn't get to see a lot of OMG's games because I was really tired during the regionals. So I think it was about 2 p.m. But I don't have as much faith in Fnatic or LMQ, so from what I did see of OMG during the regionals, I would give it to them for number 2.
Also, between either, if both teams, Fnatic and Cool, plays at their top level, it's between either you think the solo laners can carry more because Gogoing and Cool are, they are better than SOAS and Xpeke. That's pretty much it. But San is not the top ADC in the world, definitely not, and Data 7, that definitely not the best support as well. So Fnatic has the better bot lane, but the solo laners are definitely on the Chinese side. So it depends how the game goes, and I can see the game going to like ridiculously long 50-minute team fights. And if Reckles will be playing perfectly, he can carry the game alone, because I've seen Sand doing some random stuff, getting killed, getting picked off before the fight even starts, so that's one thing that OMG has to be scared of. Otherwise, I think if it's just a random fight here and there, then the solo laners on OMG are strong enough just to carry it.
Well,
That's pretty much it.
Chase, it's good to have you back.
Nice to see you back.
Yeah. All you missed was a little bit of riffing on Group C as we frantically tap danced to get you back on the show. So I know you had a chance to look at Group C before the show. So what is your thought? What is your breakdown? Where do you see Group C heading?
I really think Group C is the group of death. I know the group of death is an overused phrase when it comes to sports, but this group more than any has kind of earned that right. I like all of the teams in this group. I think in the right situation, any of these teams could have come out of any other kind of group, but here we are. I think Blue is going to take this group because Blue takes whatever is coming their way at this point. Dade has proven that he's way more than just the King of Spring, and I think that team is just in such a great place. And as for the second place team, I'm leaning more towards Fnatic right now. And I know everything you said about OMG is completely correct. If they play their skirmish game that we know they can play, and they let their solo laners carry them to victory, that's going to be OMG's recipe for success. But I really like the way Fnatic is playing as a team unit as a general rule. I love Reckles. I love the whole idea of if this gets to a late game, we can get him on a Tristana or a Vayne or whatever else, let him help in those team fights, where I think Fnatic might have a slight edge as we get more and more into those games. I see them splitting the series. I think what's really going to come down to is how they go against LMQ. And I think right now, with what we've heard behind the scenes with OMG and everything else, I can see them dropping a game mentally that I think Fnatic is just not going to let themselves do. And that's where I give Fnatic the slight edge.
Well, you mentioned Fnatic, and we haven't had a chance to bring this up yet. And we actually did have a rather fiery debate before the show in our back chat about how good or how bad or what he will bring to the table. Toys, Fnatic's new analyst.
Yes.
And Chase, you look very happy about this debate, so I'm just going to let you go first. Go at it, my man.
He is the reason that I watch competitive League of Legends. Like, that season, his run, and that TPA team was what gave me the love for the GPL. It's what gave me the love for the competitive scene. It's something that it captures my heart. And I think what they've done, and what I think people underestimate about this coaching move, is they've picked someone from an outside region, something, it's very easy for them. They could have gotten pretty much whoever they wanted in Europe. It's Fnatic. They've got the history. They've got the money. They could have gotten another European-type guy. But instead they're getting someone who has that GPL experience, something that you really don't get from – there aren't many people that have that kind of history behind them, that have that understanding of all the different Asian cultures and what they bring, and consistently practicing against these kinds of teams. Sure, the game has moved on a little bit, but from when he played. But he's someone that certainly has followed it, and I think he can bring a kind of dynamic and a perspective that they don't have in other ways. So that's why I personally am a big fan of this move of theirs.
Well, Camille, I'm going to put you on the spot because I know you do disagree. Not to spoil it, but there was a pretty large debate in our back chat before the show. So could you articulate, back that up, explain yourself a little bit?
Yeah, I'm just going to... First of all, I'm going to ask Chase, what exactly is the GPL experience, and how the hell is it going to help anyone else? Because that's something I don't understand.
Back in the day, before Season 2 Worlds, they were scrimming against Korean teams, against Chinese teams, and against other Southeast Asian teams. They have this experience because of where they're located, because they're in the Eastern cultures, and they have that kind of cultural understanding more than what Western cultures do. They just look at the game from a different way. They look at it, if you look at what's the difference between Korean teams and North American teams, it's not the Koreans are born with better gaming skills, but they have this innate Eastern culture that helps them to respect their elders and listen to people and kind of deal with these kinds of structures. Toys has experience with that. He had it in Southeast Asia, but Taiwan, the TPA, the Assassins, I should say, were doing that before just about anybody else was in League of Legends. They were one of the first teams to have their own gaming house. He understands that system. He understands what that brings and what you need to be a truly professional team. I think that matters. I think having that Eastern experience matters.
I don't disagree that GPL doesn't bring some really interesting ideas. Often they can't really execute those ideas, but in GPL, if you actually follow GPL, every season you have at least 3 or 4 really good ideas that teams just screw up slowly. Pretty much. But about Toys, I'm not sure how much of a help that will be, because he hasn't been... Maybe he watched the scene, maybe he followed the competitive scene, but he hasn't been really playing in the competitive circuit. So, having someone not entirely in touch with the competitive scene, let's say, I'm not sure how much help it will actually bring Fnatic. Also, Steven told me that, for example, Koreans have the Brood Wars coaches, but it's not the same. You have a month, let's say a month. The Wars will be finished next month, in the middle of the next month, or at the end of the next month. Can't remember the dates anyway. How much can you actually teach a team at that short amount of time? You can teach them some basic strategies, maybe some picks, maybe some dynamics, or maybe some decision making. But you can't fix communication. You can't fix how they think. You can't fix.
They have Aranea for that, though. They already have another coach for that.
So why do they need Toys? That's my point.
Because it's another weapon to the arsenal. It's something else. It's another view, another perspective. That's all that... He doesn't need to be that big guy that accomplishes everything for him. He just needs to give them that one little piece, which is, I have lived in the eastern side of esports, and I know what that is like. I know what they're going to be thinking when they go in their games against you. That's it. If that's all he does, he has gotten all the value they need from him.
I don't necessarily think that Toys is the best solution. Then, if you want to go for the Southeast Asian guy, there are other guys in TPA. From what I understand, Mistake was the, let's say, brain of the team. So, and I'm not sure how it will work. It could work because Mistake is shortcaster for Garena, so there might be some issues there. But I'm pretty sure there are some analysts, there are some coaches that know how to help a team. I'm not even sure if Toys have the ability to get his knowledge actually transferred to Fnatic. Do you know what I mean? I have no information if he actually coached the team. I have no information how the interaction may actually go. So it's a bit weird for me to pick such a high-profile, known player to be a coach just because of his name or his experience. The experience is not transmissible easily. So that's just my thing.
Well, I think that's fair. Steven, I know you were on one side of this debate earlier. So what's your perspective on this Toys as an analyst/coach, whatever his official title is for Fnatic?
Well, I don't know if he's actually an analyst or a coach, but I didn't read the entire thing because I was at work, but I read Toys will be brought on as a coach for Fnatic until the end of Worlds, and then we'll see if we go from there. And then the original argument started when Camille said he wasn't sure how much Toys might bring. Like he mentioned on the show, like how much strategy he could impart in the team right now. He hasn't been playing competitive for a year, but not all coaches are analysts. Not all coaches are gameplay coaches. And I brought up the Broodware coaches because they have multiple coaches. They have some coaches for like life coaches.
They being Korean teams, correct?
What?
When you say they, you mean Korean teams,
yeah,
correct?
Korean teams. Yeah.
Okay, just to clarify.
Yeah, sorry. The Korean league coaches are from the Broodware era, but they have multiple coaches. Like they have gameplay coaches, they have communication coaches, life coaches, whatever. We don't even know what kind of coach he is, so I think it could be a good acquisition purely based on what Toys could possibly bring in, like communication, teamwork, maybe practice regimens, whatever, drilling. Whether or not I think he will bring a lot of like genius strategy, I don't think so. But I don't know if he might. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what Toys has been up to since he departed from esports. last year. But I think it could be a good pickup, and I don't think it's better than doing nothing. And what was it going to do?
I mean, that's the way I would look at it if you're a fan. Like, obviously, if you're Fnatic, you're looking at your value equations and how much am I going to get out of whatever money I'm paying him. But I don't have to worry about Fnatic's pocketbooks. And if I'm a Fnatic fan, all I care about is, are they trying to use every resource at their disposal to get an edge? If this gets even a minimal amount of value, that's better than the no value they were getting without him. So,
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I don't really want to keep trotting over this. I think our opinions are pretty well known. So let's go ahead and lock in our picks for Group C. Chase, I'm just tell me if I'm wrong, or actually just go ahead and give us your picks. I don't even want to guess because this is a wide open group.
I'm going blue for number 1, and I'm taking Fnatic at number 2. I'm a big believer in that Fnatic team. I think that the coaching that they've gotten, the experience that they have, and I think Reckles is a god at AD carry. And I think if you have those 3 things going for you, you can get out of the group stage.
And if you disagree with him, feel free to send him hate tweets. His Twitter is right under his picture. But anyway, Camille, who do you have for Group C?
Definitely Blue first, then RMG, because Chinese teams can dive through your team. They don't care if it's a 5-on-5. They can dive you anyway. They can kill Reckles. And if they kill Reckles, that's over. That's over for the Fnatic. So I go for RMG as second.
Excuse me, and Steven, who do you have? Sorry.
No, I agree with Camille. I have Blue as first, and I have OMG as a second. I think Fnatic's good, and I think they could possibly benefit from Toys' coaching, but I'm going to have to give it to OMG. I think they'll... I just think that they're going to run them over.
Well, I feel like there's going to be some crow pie for one or two people on this panel after, but that's okay. That's what makes debate in sports fun. Anyway, guys, let's move on to the last group, and then we can cut off this topic. Again, I'm going to say this throughout the show. Fans, if you're listening live, one, we do appreciate you spending your time to watch us talk. But also, if you have a question or if you have a comment, we have some moderators in chat who would be glad to pass that question on to me, and then I'll prompt the panel. Anyway, moving on, like I said, talking about Group D. Group D, if LMQ was the slight...
That's the definite first for me, and the second... Well, it's not gonna be Kaboom, so I'm gonna just cut it here.
Going out on a limb?
You have to get your Kaboom out of your system during the group stage.
But it is fun to say. That's but Alliance or Cloud9, that's a bit weird because both teams haven't been playing perfectly. Especially Cloud9 has been making loads of uncharacteristic to them mistakes, and I don't follow the tweets because some people say that we just won against top Korean teams, and then it's gonna go out as we won against IM or some random crap Korean team, but I think Alliance has a slight edge just because the overall skill ceiling is a bit higher. I'm not sure how it's gonna go. If Cloud9 plays to the highest standard and Alliance doesn't fix some of the game closing errors they commit, then I think Alliance should take it. Maybe not as easily as White Shield, but they should 3-1 or maybe even draw and win a tiebreaker and go second.
Well, there you go. Steven, do you disagree, agree? What you got for Group D?
For Group D, I have Alliance and White Shield going out, but I do think it's possible that C9 can take over Alliance, only because, well, I think it's not that likely, but I think it's a small possibility. And the only reason I would say that is because they're really good team fighting. They could probably match up to Alliance in 5v5s. But whether or not High gets rolled by Froggen is another question. But yeah, I pretty much give it to Alliance as 2, and then Shield as 1. I just think Shield's too good, obviously, from what we've seen in Korea. And
Shield solo lanes are so devastating
Exactly.
that it's brutal. Fans are in for a treat whenever White Shield comes on. Just watch safe. You will be tweeting me thanking me. Just watch safe.
Yeah. Also, Watch has gotten a lot better in Lee Sin. I'll give him that. I really like that.
That's true. But Chase, what about you? What do you have? What are your thoughts on Group D?
Well, Group D is actually one of these groups I've gone back and forth on in my head. On the one hand, I'm a firm believer that the top 5 Korean teams in EDG have cemented themselves as a tier above just about everybody else. That's something I've felt for a while now. When you watch the way these OGN teams play, they just on a mechanical and strategic level just seem to be playing a whole different game a lot of times. And you look at what White Shield was able to do on that run, which honestly I don't think was as much of a run as people kind of claim. You look at what they had done. They lose in the quarterfinals of OGN 3-2 to the Arrows, who end up winning it all at the end. I mean, that was that was not a team that sat back and did nothing for a couple months. Here's my thing with White Shield, though. This is possibly the worst group draw that they could have gone. Because what has their weakness been? Teams that know how to team fight well, move to objectives, and kind of diminish the effect of their solo laners. And now you have Cloud9 and Alliance, who are two of the most cerebral teams that you're going to find from the Western world, who love to do exactly that. Now, is that enough for Naj and White Shield to lose this group? No. But I do think they could drop a game, especially to, maybe to both of them if things go wrong. I think they'll only drop one. I think Alliance is the second team for me just because I think Froggen right now, what they're able to do and the way that they've, Shook really taking the leap in the finals against Fnatic was what cemented it for me. But that entire team, I feel like, is playing as a better cohesive unit right now than Cloud9. I'm not bold enough to pick Alliance over Naj and White Shield, but just know I really want to. Like, in my heart, I have Alliance as number 1 and Naj and White Shield as number 2, but I'm going to trust my head and say the Koreans take care of business enough. But
ironically, should Alliance get out of Group D at number 1, they would get a quarterfinal meeting with Fnatic in your scenario. So it'd be an all Europe quarterfinal in that.
You
bracket.
Say that like it'd be a bad thing.
I'm going to plead the 5th on that, actually. But anyway, guys, I think we're pretty much all on the same page. Najin, White Shield, and Alliance are probably going to make it out, but Cloud9 should make it interesting. Now, whether it's White Shield or Alliance first, I think, Chase, you have a good point in that's going to be fairly entertaining. I think, personally, White Shield rolls them. But, again, that's why they play the games, and give us stuff to talk about. That's their whole job. But guys, we have done all 4 groups at Worlds. I don't want to get into quarterfinals, semifinals, final stuff because not that I can't remember your things, but when we're talking about hundreds of scenarios, we'd be here for 10 hours and our bosses would shoot me and then they'd shoot you. So let's not do that. Let's move on. We're going to talk a little bit of promotion tournament that is happening over the next 3 days. Both Europe's and North America's tournament starts the 9th and ends on the 11th. We're going to talk a little NA first, and I'm actually going to jump around a little bit because, Chase, you have some, let's say, strong feelings about Team Coast. I know you're a Team Coast fan, so why don't you talk to us a little bit about the EG Coast matchup that happens on the 10th?
Let me make something clear. I was a Coast fan. I am now a Dignitas fan because my heart truly lay with Zion Spartan the entire time. He is, to this day, my favorite professional player. I have an obsession with split-pushing top laners. Hi, Kevin, if you're watching this as well. You're also in my fan club. Or I am the leader of yours, I should say. But as far as Coast, I have an article about this coming up this week. I'm hoping to release it on Paravine. So I don't want to spoil everything I'm going to say in that. But Coast, by bringing in Miracle and Ringer from Korea, which really just sounds like a bad pun, doesn't it? Like, oh my God, we need to get out of the stage. We need a Miracle and a Ringer. Let's go do that. But it goes against everything I believe about team building. They took this team that had done really well up until this point with a slight fumble against Curse Academy in the North American promotion, the final playoffs. And they took Golden Glue, who I feel like keeps getting screwed over by being benched at the last minute right before he has a chance to show himself. And Rux, who, maybe not be the best top laner in the world, but had earned his spot to bring in Koreans who, do we know what their communication's going to be like? At the very least, we know that they're taking a huge chemistry hit by doing this. I don't even know what their level of communication in English is going to be. And to bring them in at the last moment just seems like such a rash, panic kind of move. I can't support it. I feel like at the end of the day, you really need to stick by the guys who got you there. And by making these moves at the last second, I think they've just set themselves up for disaster. Not that Evil Geniuses really needed the help. I think Alltech the Boy Wonder is going to carry them through this regardless. But I was really disappointed by that, honestly. Just when you're building a team, you build a unit because you believe these players work together. And to just replace two guys at the last moment, and not even with players that they'd worked with, but with Koreans seemingly out of nowhere, I don't know. It feels like a reach to me and a desperation move, and I will be rooting emphatically for Evil Geniuses to prove my theories of team building correct.
Well, that sounds fair. So you have EG over Team Coast.
Yeah, 3 games to 1 specifically.
3-1.
I think. I think Coast will grab 1. I think they're capable. That bottom lane is a strong bottom lane. I think they can surprise some people, but I don't think. I think Alltech will be able to carry them from the bottom, and Helios has done enough objective control that I think they'll carry themselves through.
Well, that's fair. Camille, do you agree, disagree with that assessment? I don't think you need a soliloquy there, which was excellent, Chase, but no.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of changing 2 players 2 or 3 weeks before the promotion, because that, and for Koreans, obviously they said their English is awesome. But then again, when CLG said that Seraph's English is improving, and then I hear some really weird stuff coming from him. Yeah, I don't buy that Koreans can miraculously speak well in English. But I think that's not necessarily a bad move, because one of the main strengths of Chaos was getting Santorin to the jungle, because he's actually one of the best junglers in NA, I think, personally. So having 2, if they're as good as they claim, individual solo laners, and to have Santorin just roam between top and middle all the time and try to snowball the game through those solo laners, that's not necessarily the bad strategy. It's a bit of a risky strategy and a bit of a weird move, but I don't know, maybe it's worth betting on. I think, though, that Evil Geniuses should take it, and I would love Evil Geniuses to take it, because without Crepo, I don't like LCS anymore. I mean,
He's the reason for your existence in the LCS.
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah. I also would love Chaos to actually lose, so Santorin can be a proper team in the LCS. That's another thing. But I think Evil Geniuses will improve. When they were already on a verge of being relegated, they actually played really well, or decently well. So yeah, I think Evil Geniuses should take it 3-1, 3-2 maybe, but probably Evil Geniuses there.
Steven, what about you? Do you agree or disagree?
Well, I agree, because as Chase knows, I have this burning, longing, burning passion of hatred against Coast, I mean. I really don't like Coast, guys. I really don't like Coast.
Freudian slip.
But this is not the Coast that I hate. I'm not gonna get into that. Like getting 2 Korean challengers, 2-3 weeks before the tournament, it's really rocky. Didn't mean to make that pun. I don't even know if they worked well together as a team, because even if one player is good, if they don't work on the same wavelength, then it doesn't matter when you're going against a team that's been together through all the lows of the LCS, aka the Geniuses, and they do work pretty well together. They've gotten really, maybe not really good, but they've gotten considerably better from the start of the LCS to the end of the LCS, and they did start kind of on a low note, so there was nowhere to go but up. But still, I think Evil Geniuses can definitely hold their spot against Coast. I think Alltech will definitely hard carry. Crepo is going to get some clutch plays in. Their bot lane's Mash Me and Sheep?
Sheep.
Sheep? Sure, I think Sheep's decent. Mash Me, I'm not sold. I never once thought that Mash Me was a good AD
According to Chaos, they're world class, so...
Yeah, I don't buy that.
You don't know.
I don't buy that for a second. Mash Me, even when GGU was second place in the first spring split, never was sold that Mash Me was a good AD. So I think EG is gonna win 3-1 or 3-0.
Well, sounds like EG is going to make it back into the LCS, if only for Camille to keep up his love affair with Crepo. Anyway, guys, I don't really want to break down the other two matches. I just kind of want to get your picks and then move on to EU. I don't want to stretch the show too much. So, Chase, who do you have? You have CLG requalifying over Curse Academy, or do you smell an upset there?
That's a 3-1 for CLG. I think Double Lift and Dexter, all those guys, just their pure mechanics, even if their team chemistry's completely got out the window, they can get through a team like Curse Academy.
Steven, what about you? Upset. Are you putting CLG on upset alert, or CLG going to make it back?
I think CLG will make it back, but I want nothing more to see St. Vicious make back to the LCS.
Talk about a storyline. St. Vicious knocks out CLG.
Well, I mean, we had the storyline before when Team Summon, Locust's team, went against Dignitas, summer to last year, I think?
Yeah, summer of before Season 3.
Yeah, Locust tried to come back with Team Summon, they got completely rocked.
Well, I mean, I think if St. Vicious were to knock CLG out, only half the internet would break, and the other half would be Reddit burning. That's okay. Camille, what about you? Upset alert or CLG make it through?
I would love to see Curse taking the first two games and then the magic comeback of 3-2 for CLG. That would be the best, I think, for the viewers. Yeah.
Wait, you've seen enough CLG to know that if they take a couple losses, they're done. Like
Yeah,
that's not what CLG does well. They need 2 confidence wins to build themselves back up again. You can't.
Yeah, but they
start
can
them
win
that
2
way.
games and then lose the next one, or win one and lose the next one.
Yeah,
So.
but St.
I don't know.
Vicious...
I wouldn't bet on the win one game and then just
Yeah, but
have a
Saint
straw
Vicious is-
and win the other ones.
St. Vicious is old CLG, though. He's part of the win few games, give fans hope, then lose the rest. You don't know which
That's
one's
true.
stronger.
All right, guys. That's enough shenanigans. I think a lot of us, not a lot of us, but several of us hope that CLG does get knocked out just for the storyline and the Reddit explosion, but we'll see. And finally, last NA matchup, you have Teammate versus Complexity. Steven, who you got?
Can you come back to me? I don't know. I don't know who's on either team. No, wait. Teammate
Wow.
has Maple
Wow.
from Maple Street.
I'm so glad one of my panelists prepared for the show after we went over topics ad nauseum. Chase, take it. I think you look like you're interested.
Well, people who have been following me on Twitter and whatever else know that I do not care for this Complexity team as much as everyone tells me I should. Like, I get that they're cool people and that's awesome, and I love their personalities. I think Prawley's a cool guy. I'd love to have a beer with Bubba Dub or whatever else. But they're not very good. Like, at any measurable stat that you name, they're not very good. And you know who is good? Team 8. They're very good. They have a great mid laner, great top laner in Calatrolls, who came out of nowhere, seemingly. This was a guy that I was pretty good for a while, but just seems to have completely made the leap and been a force in the top lane. And they've got Maple Street. I don't understand, people are going to love Complexity and they're going to, want to pick that way. But for me, I have Team 8 winning this 3-1. I think they're the better team.
Well, Steven's still preparing over there.
No, I got it.
Oh, okay, then go. What you got?
Okay, I was right. Teammate is the one with Maple Street. That was my question. Okay, I know that team. I just didn't remember my name.
You just got a shaking head. That's
I'm
terrible.
really tired, guys. I didn't sleep last night. All right, I'm running on this thing
Yeah.
called
I don't
48
need
hour
your
wake.
excuses. I need your picks. Go
All right,
ahead.
all right. I have Teammate beating Complexity. I think Maple Street's gonna and what's it, Dodo? I think they're gonna dumpster Bubba Dub and Robert Exley.
Camille, you agree, disagree? Who you got?
For obvious reasons, I really like Babadub. But probably Teammate is going to take it. I really would prefer Prawley to actually be on a panel constantly every LCS week because I find them more entertaining as a panelist than a player, lately at least. So probably, I think Teammate is strong enough to even take it 3-0. I'm not sold on the Complexity Gaming being the LCS team, so having the advantage. I don't think there is any advantage there.
Absolutely. Well, I apologize. My phone just exploded briefly. So we have, as a panel, you guys have said that Team 8 is going to beat Complexity. So halt the presses. Here we go. Going to see that. That matchup does take place on the last day, on the 11th. So it may be a little surprise at the end of the tournament. But let's move over to EU. We're going to do EU picks, and then we're going to close the show with the, for lack of a better term, region locking that Wally Sports just posted. Again, I've said this a few times. I'll say it a few more. If you have a question in chat, feel free to pass it along, and one of my moderators will get it to me, and we will get it answered for you. But until then, let's move on. We have the 3 European promotion tournament matches, and let's just go straight through these. Camille, you've been talking a lot, so I'll let you talk some more. Who you got, CW versus H2K?
I would go for H2K. I'm a huge fan of H2K. I think they had some random drama during the Challenger Series, and random people getting off the team and getting back to the team, just weird stuff going on. But yeah, Odoamne is really good. Febiven is also pretty good. Copenhagen Wolves needs to have a wake-up call to actually start playing better. I don't think Airbox or Unlimited are an LCS material exactly. I think Woolite is pretty good. Youngbuck is obviously a veteran, maybe not the top-tier LCS player, but he's decent. I think H2K, it's time for new faces to actually show up and just join the party. I think H2K should take it 3-1, let's say.
Well, there you go. Steven, you have an opinion on this one? Or you passing out over there?
No, I'm fine, dude.
All right, there you go. Go ahead.
I think H2 Gaming will take it over Copenhagen Wolves, dude. I couldn't have put it better than Camille, though, so...
Well, hey, that's fine. If you got nothing else, go ahead. It sounds to me like you guys are very hopeful for some LCS changeover. Chase, you agree, disagree?
I'm less hopeful than these guys are. I think the Wolves are going to keep their spot in a 3-2 very close series. There have been too many rumors about H2K for my liking, and when you're going down to a best-of-5 series with everything on the line, I don't want any problems to be on the team that's trying to challenge their way in, that doesn't have the experience, that hasn't proven that they know how to stick together as a team. You have to be able to trust each other and know that when things get down, you're going to be able to group together and do this. And I don't know if they have that kind of trust in each other. I don't know that if they lose a couple games to the Wolves early on in that series, that they're going to bounce back in a positive way. I think this is a team that could take a couple games early on. I think it could be exactly like that series you saw actually with Super Hot Crew and SK Gaming way back at the beginning of Season 4, where you see H2K get to a 2-game lead, you see the changes about to happening, and then the experienced team locks in. They've been there before, they know how to be in that situation, and they take care of business. I got 3-2 for the Wolves. I think it's a very close series, but I think that Woolite, and I think Airwalks is a little bit better than people give him credit for. And Selfie obviously has become much more of a talent in the mid lane. I think it's enough to keep their spot.
Well, we have some dissension in the ranks. Sounds like a plan. I look forward to how this game goes. Let's move on, though. We have Gambit Gaming. Oh, Gambit Gaming. Versus SK Gaming Prime. Camille, who you got? Actually, you're typing. Go ahead. Chase, go ahead. Or go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were typing just now.
Right, so I think Gambit versus anyone from those 3 challenger teams, I would bet anything on Gambit. I think they started playing better, they needed time. They had few major changes. Obviously after Alex left, it looked grim for them. And I'm pretty happy that they got to the relegation. But right now I think they are in a good place. They have solid players and they should be able to easily take it. Not sure if it's going to be 3-0, and I'm definitely not sure if Kubon was the right choice for the top lane. But otherwise, I think Nico is a really great mid laner. He's better than people think of him. I wouldn't say he's the new Alex Ich, because there's too much history there. But he can definitely carry up to that potential, at least. So I would say 3-0 for Gambit.
Gambit gets back. Steven, what you got? You agree, disagree?
I agree only because Gambit has a really good history of playing well after a boot camp. and they haven't been playing for a while. So I'm sure they're boot camping for the relegation. They've had time to mentally prepare themselves since they've kind of known this is coming for a long time. So cards on the table.
Get to be a controversial opinion guy again. I like this. I don't see what the faith in Gambit is. This is not the same Gambit that we saw do all these boot camps in the past. Remember, Genja's not going to be there. He's being replaced by Chrisland, who we have no idea how he works in that in that team. And Genja was the best thing about that Gambit team who won those 4 games in the last Super Week. He was by far and away the best player in that, just his positioning. He pulled back the AP Kog'Maw build, which was something that he had done a while back. That was what helped them win those 4 games. I don't think they have it. I don't think Kuban's a good enough top laner. I don't think that Nick is a good enough mid laner. Any measure you use for him statistically, he does very poorly. I don't think that he's a guy that can make big plays for him compared to someone like What the Fox, who I do think, first of all, great name. Second of all, I think a great mid laner. And I think Kiki's right now, Diamond got himself so overworked. I'm not sure that advantage is what Gambit used to have. I know there are some things about that SK Gaming team, maybe behind the scenes, they haven't necessarily stuck together as much as I'd like, but I don't see anything in that Gambit team that makes me feel like this is a team that is in a place to really destroy anybody. I think it's another 3-2 series. I'm going to give the advantage to SK Gaming Prime. I think they've got right now a little bit more raw energy to it, and I think that Gambit team is just not who we know them to be.
Well, Mr. Controversial, well done, sir. Last game of promotions, we have Millennium versus the Unicorns of Love, and Chase, you can start us off being controversial if you feel that there's going to be another new team in the LCS. What you have on that?
No, I'm not controversial on this one. Yeah, I already said I have a huge love for Millennium, Kevin specifically. I love split pushing top laners, so I got to go for him here. I think that Millennium team has always been one with tons of raw talent that they just haven't been able to focus. As I mentioned in one of my previous articles, they don't have a coach. They don't have an analyst. That infrastructure is going to hurt them against anyone but a challenger team, which also doesn't tend to have that kind of amazing infrastructure or analysis or whatever else. So when you're looking at just pure raw talent, I think they've got what they need to carry themselves through. I think that's a 3-0 Millennium.
Well, that is decidedly not controversial. That is a stomp. Steven, what do you think?
This is one of the rare times you'll ever get to see me agree with Chase, but I agree with Chase.
Stop the presses.
The first time!
Me and Chase disagree on almost everything. Kevin is one of my favorite top laners. Even though I dislike Zansparn for other reasons, I do play split pushing top laners, so I do like Kevin. I watch Kevin from time to time across the past few years. I think he's solid. Kerp, on and off for me, but I think he'll probably stump the challenger team. Yeah, I think it'll be really one-sided series for Millennium, or somehow they'll lose the first 2 games and then come back 3-0 swinging.
Well, there you go. Camille, upset alert or stomp for Millennium?
I think Millennium has a higher chance of winning, and I think Unicorns of Love obviously had this whole hype after they 3-0 NIP for the 3rd spot for the promotion, which was fair enough. They played pretty well. But then again, NIP didn't play at all. I don't know what happened there. I do, though, hope that Millennium lose, because I think since it was created as alternate, they always had this hype about them that they're all individually awesome. They have this huge amount of potential, but they never did anything with it. Some weeks they were awesome, other weeks they were crap, totally crap. So I would rather see some of this supposed talent to be taken from for other teams than actually if they stick together. Because if they can't do anything for 2 splits, I don't think there is much hope in the next split for Millennium. So just for this reason, I hope Unicorns of Love take it, and that Millennium just spreads their players amongst other teams. But objectively, I think Millennium 3-2, 3-1 probably.
Well, there you have it. Looks like Millennium will be back again, frustrating fans with their enormous talent and Face-palming tendencies that make fans go face-palm. That would be a good, very long hashtag to describe this team. Well, guys, we do have only one more topic we're going to talk about tonight. The show's been going, and again, we really appreciate it if you've been listening to us live. If you have any questions, let us know, and my moderators will get the question to me, and we'll be glad to answer it. But we are going to close the show with the final topic of the quote-unquote new rules. The 3/5 rule, where you have to be established in a region for a certain amount of time, that Riot hasn't really broken down yet. So this is kind of going to be an introductory discussion, but Camille, you've said to me on a couple of occasions you have an opinion on this, so why don't you start us off on this topic?
It's not really a discussion about if one region overtakes the other. It's about, do you value the quality of your esport or your tournament, or the diversity of your teams? Because in the end, Riot will always be separating NA, EU, and so on. So every region has the teams to cheer for during the international tournaments. And it's fine, because otherwise we are going to a really unhealthy situation that StarCraft is and was for a long time, where it went to the point where anyone who's not Korean was called a foreigner. And that's not normal, pretty much, anywhere else. That's just weird to me, and sure, I would love to have the top level of competition always, but if we go this road, we will soon have only Korean teams stomping anyone else, and it won't be entertaining enough. It will be entertaining for people who watch just for the amazing insect kicks, faker outplays, and stuff like that. But if you want to cheer for Xpeke or Soaz or anyone, I don't know, some random player who just, you know him and you cheer for him, that's not going to happen if we don't lock it or contain the Koreans moving around the world, at least to some point.
So you're in favor of it as is, if I'm reading this correctly?
I'm not, because I'm one of those people who would prefer only to see insect kicks and faker outplays, but, you know.
You just want to see League. You don't want to be a fan of a specific person. I can respect that. That's certainly a perspective that's valued. Chase, what about you? You seem itching to jump into this discussion.
Yeah, for one, I like this new ruling because I think what it does that's so important is it makes it so that each of these individual regions has to put in the time, the money, and the investment to get themselves at that higher infrastructure level. You look at what happened in StarCraft, because they were able to just import these Koreans over, which obviously it's a little bit different when you're importing one guy versus a team of guys. But when you're when you're able to just import talent and instantly jump to success, make the money and whatever dividends you're looking for, teams are always going to take the easy way out. There is no easy way out anymore. The only way you can do it is by using the talent that's available to you and getting the most out of it. So what does that mean? You invest in coaches, you invest in analysts, you invest in infrastructure, because that's the only way you are going to get an advantage over your opponents. You can't just outpay to out-import. And to me, that's really important to make a stable League of Legends for years to come. I don't think it's a problem right now. I don't think the mobility is high enough right now. I don't think the money's quite there to make it so that too many Korean teams would come over just as is, just to stomp a region. But what we can do now is set the foundation so that these regions have to invest in their own talent, in their own resource pool, and to invest in their own human capital. Well, use some economics phrases in there. I think developing human capital is the only way to get better. And what this decision does is that's all you have to do. You're shaking your head at me, Camille. I see. What's the other option then for these teams if they don't?
Yeah, you have a really, for me, unreasonable assumption that the only way forward is to invest, which is totally not how I see it. It's the best shown in the GPR, where you have one really good team, and I don't think TPA cares. Obviously, they will say they care, but the sponsors won't care if they win on the international level. They will want to be the best in the GPR, and that's it. If we lock the regions, what's stopping those top NA or EU teams for not caring too much, just being the best in the region, sticking around, having a regular pension, and just being the best in NA. It doesn't matter. It sustains the team. So I don't think necessarily the way forward, if you lock it, is to invest to join the top Korean teams level, because that doesn't give you anything. If the other option was there, that the Koreans can actually change a region to NA, then you would have to invest to keep up and to stay in the league. If you don't need to worry about it, there will be some teams that will just hang around, and that's the problem.
But Dignitas and Millennium are already just hanging around before this rule was in place. We already have teams that do that, and those teams are always going to do it. But what we're really looking at is improving the infrastructure of those top teams, the TSMs, the Fnatics, the teams who have money and could just buy a team of Koreans if they wanted to. Those are the teams that all that money they would have spent investing in Korean players, they now have to spend if they have these aspirations that they claim to have. And I have no reason to doubt their integrity when they're saying, we want to win Worlds, we want to get that big Worlds paycheck, because that's what they're really in it for. For those big teams, the teams that are at the top of the charts, international results really do matter. And in those cases, I think you're going to see a lot more investment in infrastructure as a result. I agree. The smaller teams, you're probably right. They're just going to milk their paycheck for what they're worth because they can. But you're going to get that no matter what system you use. So at least this system pushes the very top teams to be even better than they would be otherwise. Because they're not competing, they have to use what they have. They don't have any other way to do it. But that's me. I understand where you're coming from for sure, though.
I think there are ups and downs to both, because let's say there's no region locking and a bunch of Korean pros start moving to NA, EU, China, GPL, whatever, doesn't matter, right? And let's say that they start taking over. Well, I guess in a way the competition would be raised, but at the same time it would be boring, to an extent. But at the same time, I don't think it could happen the same way that it happened to StarCraft, because in StarCraft, in Brood War, it all originated in Korea. All the tournaments were there. Any other tournament, the reason why other people were called foreigners was because they didn't necessarily invite foreigners over to Brood War until way later, like the 5th, 6th year. Then players like Idra started coming over, blah blah blah. Like, that's not really important, that's my point. That's a one-on-one game, and the Koreans had more time, better coaches, better infrastructure, and then the foreigners were just practicing at home, practicing against the other foreigners, kind of twiddling their thumbs. But in this case, we have a 5v5, it's a 5v5 game. There is infrastructure going in the other regions. I think the other regions, even without Koreans on the team, can compete with the top Koreans. Maybe not outright beat them. I mean, obviously there's a clear difference in skill between Korea, China, NA, EU, whatever. But that doesn't mean that there's not room for growth. But what the rule does is that I guess it preemptively stops some Korean teams just from moving to other places for better money and a guaranteed spot at Worlds without having to try as hard. But at the same time, you can still import some players here and there. It allows some flexibility within the team, and I think that's interesting. Just because if some players want to go to a different country for very specific reasons, I don't know, they want to live in America, they just want to, maybe an NA team wants to go to Korea and see if they can get better there. Now they can't do that. So I think the rule has some good points and bad points. I don't know what the answer is right now, but right now I think it's okay to have this rule.
Well, I think we might want to revisit this topic at a later show when Riot defines what, and I'm going to put this in air quotes, residency is.
Didn't Nick Allen? I thought Nick Allen had a tweet about that.
I think it's kind of incredulous to try and describe something like that in 140 characters. I would be interested to see the dialogue that would take place after an announcement like that. But again, if I'm wrong, chat, feel free to correct me. But I feel like that hasn't the official residency rules haven't been fleshed out enough to where you can say definitively yay or nay. I think you all have excellent points on this topic. But I am going to go in and close the show by my clock. We've been at it for about an hour and 20 minutes, and I feel like that's getting up to the cutoff for a decent show time. Before I let my guys shout out, I want to thank all the people that listened live. Please give us feedback. We are trying to make the show better. This is, as I said, only our second episode. But if you have feedback for an individual, our Twitter handles are right below our pictures, or just tweet at Paravine Network, and one of us will get it, and we'll try and help you have a better experience watching the show. Again, we are trying to make the show about the viewers, and next week we'd love to have some more questions, get a few more viewers. Again, it is for you. But anyway, guys, Chase, do you have any shout-outs before we end the show?
Yeah, I got, obviously my Twitter handle's already under my name, so you can follow me on there. I also do a more informal podcast called Less Than Legends, which should have a hopefully funny podcast on prop bets that I'm doing with Walter Fedchuk from the NACL, so that should be coming out in the next couple days, so stay tuned for that. And I should also have some articles coming out on Paravine over the next few days. I already mentioned the one on Coast and their whole team building strategy, but I also have one on the fourth place curse and how finishing in fourth place repeatedly is going to have an effect on your psyche when it comes to how you look at your off season. So stay tuned this week from at Paravine for more articles from me on that.
Well, Camille, what you got for shout-outs before we get out of here?
Yeah, definite shout out to Nick Allen, who, despite being probably really irritated, made the video for the live group draw, the YouTube 10-minute video, which can be rigged anyway, so I don't know. But shout out to the guy who actually tries to make the community trust riot, which that's not going to happen, but it's cool. And shout out to my other friends here who didn't stomp my arguments too much today.
That's for the post show where we all get drinking and cuss you out, but we can't do that live. Sorry, guys. Anyway, Steven, what about you? Any shout-outs?
Let's see. Just shout out to Paravine for letting us do this. Shout out to my boy Hugo, who I know he's in chat, and I know this will make him happy when I say it. But yeah, no, I don't have too much shout-outs. Just thanks for putting up with me and me being up for 50 hours almost. I'll make sure to get some sleep.
You officially have our permission to go to sleep.
I'll make sure to sleep before the next show, but hopefully I did an alright job.
You were absolutely fine. You were great. All three of you, props to all three of you. I think you brought great content. I hope our listeners appreciated it. Again, before we sign off, all three of our Twitter handles are under our pictures, so feel free to give us a follow, tweet us some feedback. If you don't want to follow any of us, well, that makes us sad, but we can respect that. So give us some feedback at Paravine Network. Like I said, we are trying to improve the show. Thank you very, very much for hanging out with us over the past hour and a half or so. I'm going to go in and close the show, but before I do, again, give us a follow, and have a great rest of the week. We'll be back hopefully next Monday to talk probably more promotion tournament, because that's the only thing that's happening this week. But again, keep an eye on the Paravine Network Twitter, and we will let you know next show. Until then, like I said, have a great week, and see you on the Rift.